Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. To get Russia and Ukraine on table for peace talks, US President Trump threatens Russia with sanctions until ceasefire deal is reached. In the wake of massive protests in Greece, government survives no confidence vote in parliament over deadly 2023 train crash. On the occasion of International Women's Day, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacts with Lakhpati Didi scheme beneficiaries in Gujarat. In sports, India's Pranav Venkatesh clinches World Junior Chess Championship in Petrovac city of Montenegro. US President Donald Trump on Friday threatened new sanctions and tariffs on Russia days after pausing military aid and intelligence support to Ukraine, and he called on both countries to get to the negotiating table for a peace deal. Trump's threat of banking curbs and tariffs followed a report that the White House was preparing to give Russia possible sanctions relief as part of the push to end the conflict and improve diplomatic economic ties with Moscow. The president offered a more conciliatory view of President Vladimir Putin in comments later in the day, saying that he believed the Russian leader wanted peace. He also said it was easier to work with Russia than Ukraine in efforts to end the conflict. Russia, one of the world's biggest oil producers, is already subject to wide-ranging sanctions imposed by the US and partners after February 2022. US sanctions on Russia include measures aimed at limiting its oil and gas revenues, including a cap of $60 a barrel on Russia's oil exports. And US Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a call with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha on Friday, told him that President Trump was determined to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict as soon as possible. Though Ukraine's position in Kursk has deteriorated sharply in the last 3 days, as Russian forces have almost surrounded thousands of Ukrainian troops who stormed into Russia's Kursk region last summer. The Russian counteroffensive has nearly cut the Ukrainian force in two and separated the main group from its principal supply lines. Russian forces also damaged energy and gas infrastructure inside Ukraine overnight in their first major missile attack since the US paused intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky welcomed the ongoing discussions with US President's team and aid support from Europe.
Сьогодні увесь день.
Today, the most intensive work with the President Trump's teams at various levels has been ongoing all day. Many calls. The focus is clear. Peace as soon as possible. Security as reliably as possible. Ukraine is committed to being as constructive as possible. Today, Russia's strike on our energy system and civilian infrastructure happened as routinely for Russia as ever, just as vile and cynical as always, as if there was no efforts by Ukraine and the world to end this war.
In other developments, China has announced retaliatory tariffs on Canadian agricultural and food products on Saturday against Ottawa's tariffs introduced in October on Chinese-made electric vehicles, steel and aluminium products. The tariffs announced by Commerce Ministry will take effect from March 20th. It adds a new front to a trade war largely driven by US President Trump's announcements of tariffs on Canada, Mexico and China and threats of protectionist measures on other nations. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in August that Ottawa was imposing the levies to counter what he called China's intentional state-directed policy of overcapacity, following the lead of the United States and European Union, both of which have also applied import levies to Chinese-made EVs. China is Canada's second largest trading partner, trailing far behind the United States. The foreign ministers from 57-member Organization for Islamic Cooperation, OIC, met at its headquarters in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, 3 days after the Arab League endorsed Egypt's alternative plan for Gaza. At the meet, OIC members adopted the Arab nations' counter-proposal to US President Trump's Gaza takeover plan. At the meeting held in Cairo on March 4th, Arab leaders has adopted an Egyptian reconstruction plan for Gaza that would cost $53 billion and avoid displacing Palestinians from the enclave, in contrast to Trump's Middle East Riviera vision.
It is certainly very positive that the emergency ministerial meeting of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation adopted the Egyptian plan, which has now become an Arab Islamic plan. The next step is for it to be an international plan.
Syria witnessed worst violence since the fall of Bashar al-Assad in December last year. Syrian security forces battled to crush an insurgency by fighters from Bashar al-Assad's Alawite sect in coastal region of western Syria. Authorities imposed curfew in the cities of Latakia and Tartus, where fighting has broken out. Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said more than 250 people have been killed since the clashes erupted on Thursday. United Nations has said there is an immediate need for restraint from all sides. Russia too called on all leaders to stop the bloodshed. Fuzail Ahmed gets us more. Islamist-led government in Syria faces the biggest challenge yet to its authority, as scores were reported killed in 2 days of violence in the coastal region of western Syria. Residents say violence began with killings of Alawite civilians in the Datur area of Latakia. Syria's leader, Ahmed al-Shara, urged insurgents from toppled President Bashar al-Assad's Alawite minority to lay down their arms before it's too late.
We will continue to pursue the remnants of the fallen regime, those who refused but to continue their operations and tyranny, those who committed crimes against the people, and those who seek to undermine security and civil peace. We will bring them to a fair court.
While the authorities say violence spiraled on Thursday after groups of Assad-aligned militia targeted security patrols and checkpoints in the Jable area surrounding countryside, curfews were declared on Friday in the coastal city of Tartus and Latakia. In view of violence, reinforcements were sent to the coastal region to crush a nascent insurgency by fighters from Bashar al-Assad's Alawite sect. In northwest of Hama, Syria's new authorities' security forces held a funeral in Qasoon village for a fighter killed in clashes with fighters loyal to former President Bashar al-Assad. Syrians took to the streets on Friday to rally in support of the government in Damascus and other cities. United Nations has expressed concerns over violence. In a statement, the Office of Special Envoy of Secretary General of Syria said, all parties should refrain from actions that could further inflame tensions, escalate conflict, exacerbate the suffering of affected communities, destabilize Syria, and jeopardize a credible and inclusive political transition. While Russian Foreign Ministry on Friday said it was alarmed by a sharp deterioration in security situation in Syria and called on all respected leaders of the country to try to stop the bloodshed as soon as possible. According to UN, more than 300,000 refugees have returned to Syria since President Assad was overthrown, while nearly 1 million more people were displaced inside the country have returned to their homes.
1 million internally displaced people living in camps and sites across northwest Syria intend to return to their areas of origin within the next year. 600,000 of them before the end of the summer 2025, according to a new large-scale intention survey carried out by UNHCR.
Bashar al-Assad was toppled in a lightning offensive late last year by rebels who have now formed a transitional government. Fuzail Ahmed reports for TD India. Greece's centre-right government narrowly survived a no-confidence vote on Friday, despite intense public outcry over the country's deadliest train crash in 2023. The opposition had accused Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis' government of negligence and cover-up, but the ruling party denied any wrongdoing. The train crash had sparked widespread anger, with hundreds of thousands demanding justice and accountability. Protests outside the parliament turned violent, with clashes between demonstrators and police, resulting in 61 detentions. The Greek leader ruled out an early election, citing the country's economic recovery. However, the government's popularity has taken a hit, with many Greeks questioning the immunity enjoyed by politicians. South Carolina executed a convicted murderer by firing squad on Friday. This was the first use of the method in the United States in about 15 years. Brad Sigmund chose to be killed by a firing squad, saying he feared the alternatives of the electric chair or lethal injection would risk a slower and more torturous death. Sigmund was convicted of beating to death his ex-girlfriend's parents, William and Gladys Lark, with a baseball bat at their home in the town of Taylors in 2001. After he was shot, Sigmund appeared to take 2 short breaths and a blood stain appeared on his chest. He was pronounced dead about 3 minutes after the shots were fired. A few hours before the scheduled execution time, the US Supreme Court rejected Sigmund's final petition to halt his killing. The court, in a brief unsigned notice with no noted dissents, denied his application, which argued that South Carolina's refusal to share information about its lethal injection protocol violated his due process rights. The anti-abortion movement in the United States has set its sight on a new target, which is doctors sending pills across state lines to help women and with unwanted pregnancies. Since the US Supreme Court's decision to overturn the federal protection of the right to an abortion, states like Texas and Louisiana have adopted tough anti-abortion laws. Texas and Louisiana are launching a legal case against a doctor in New York, a state which in turn has pressed a shield law to protect its physicians from outside prosecutions. In Texas, Attorney General declared that out-of-state doctors may not illegally and dangerously prescribe abortion-inducing drugs to Texas residents. Eastern Australia is bracing for severe flooding as ex-cyclone Alfred stalls off the coast, bringing heavy rains and gale-force winds. The tropical depression has already left some 337,000 homes and businesses without power and damaged buildings. The Bureau of Meteorology warns of intense rain and damaging wind gusts throughout the weekend, with rivers already responding to heavy rains. Flood warnings have been issued and evacuation orders have been given to some 16,000 people in New South Wales. Emergency services have carried out 30 flood rescues in the past 24 hours. Meanwhile, a severe storm has ravaged Argentine port city of Bahia Blanca, leaving 10 people dead and hundreds evacuated. The Bahia Blanca city received over 400 millimeters of rain in just 8 hours, equivalent to its annual rainfall average. Some 1,000 people were evacuated to safety, but the death toll could still rise. The city's airport was closed and officials warned of potential electric shocks due to flooding. And still to come on this edition of TD India Live. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar's visit to Ireland. US Department of Justice drops its proposal to force Google to sell its investments in AI companies. Indian Grandmaster Arvind Chidambaram claims first major title of career by winning the Prague Masters.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on TD India.
You're watching TD India Live. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Let's turn to other stories. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, on the second and last day of his Ireland visit, inaugurated India's newest consulate in Belfast in Northern Ireland. He said the consulate will serve the needs of the Indian community while also exploring further cooperation in trade, technology, business and education. Dr. Jaishankar also met Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland, Emma Little Bengelly, and Junior Minister, Arling Riley, in Belfast. He thanked them for all the support in setting up of the Indian consulate. The leaders discussed possibilities for deepening India's engagement with Northern Ireland, especially in skills, cyber, tech, creative industries and manufacturing. Dr. Jaishankar also visited Queen's University in Belfast, where he said their upcoming campus in Gift City, Gujarat, India, is an example of potential India-UK ties in education. The minister appreciated the interaction with Indian students currently studying at the university. And as Dr. Jaishankar nears his UK and Ireland visit, the minister spelled out the three focus areas of India-UK partnership.
The focus number one is to obviously serve the Indian community, which is about 10,000 and growing. Focus number two is to explore the economic opportunities here. And we see those opportunities increasing because our ties with the UK are deepening. And this is also a meeting point in a way for the UK with the European Union. Focus number three is actually education and technology. We have a number of IT companies here. We have an important university here, the Queen's University, which has decided to set up a presence in India. And of course, it has, this is a part of UK where there's a strong history of manufacturing. There's a lot of industry here. There's a shipbuilding activity here. So there's lots really which are possible.
Moving on, India's President Draupadi Murmu celebrated International Women's Day in New Delhi with women from different walks of life. President inaugurated the national conference organized by Ministry of Women and Child Development with the theme Nari Shakti Se Viksit Bharat, or Women Leadership to Develop India. On the occasion, a mega campaign through #SheBuildsBharat is also being organized. The event witnessed participation of women officers along with My Bharat volunteers, Anganwadi workers, Asha workers, self-help group members and others. Additionally, lady officers from various ministries and departments and representatives from international organizations such as the World Bank, UNICEF, UN Women, UNDP, UNFPA also participated. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with Lakhpati Didi scheme beneficiaries in Navsari district, Gujarat on International Women's Day. Roads in Navsari turned into grand celebration to welcome Prime Minister. And people were lining up on the streets to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The visuals from roads in Navsari turned into a grand celebration with people lining up in the streets in joy to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Later, Prime Minister also had the program to felicitate 5 Lakhpati Didis with Lakhpati Didi certificates. The program in Navsari, Lakhpati Didi, is a self-help group scheme initiated by the government to support women financially and inspire them through adopting sustainable livelihood practices and achieving a decent standard of living. Interestingly, the security arrangements of the program was also taken care by the women police officials of Gujarat Police. In a remarkable initiative that blends women's empowerment with efficiency in public service, Indian Railways Matunga Station set up a historic milestone as the first suburban railway station in the country to be run by an all-women staff since 2017. Indian Railways is operating Mumbai to Sainagar Shirdi Vande Bharat as a fully women-operated train, highlighting women's growing role in railways operations and promoting gender inclusivity in the sector. On International Women's Day, the Indian Navy paid tributes to Lieutenant Commander Delna and Lieutenant Commander Rupa, the 2 women officers embarking on a historic global circumnavigation expedition aboard INSV Tharani, launched in October last year. The journey is a testament to women's empowerment and Indian Navy's commitment to championing it. Air India Group marked the International Women's Day with the demonstration of its commitment to reinforce the importance of inclusivity at workplace, promoting a level playing field for its employees. In resonance with #Accelerate Action, the theme of International Women's Day 2025, Air India Group took to the skies with flights managed by all-women teams across functions in the air and on the ground, while also unveiling a series of initiatives for women employees and special offers for women passengers. In all, 18 flights operated by Air India and Air India Express on select international and domestic routes were managed by all women teams. The US Department of Justice has dropped its proposal to force Google to sell its investments in artificial intelligence AI companies, including Anthropic, a competitor to OpenAI. The department had sought to boost competition in online search by requiring Google to divest its AI investments. However, the Department of Justice still seeks to require Google to sell its Chrome browser and take other measures to address the company's alleged illegal search monopoly. Google has argued that these proposals would harm American consumers, the economy, and national security. The case is part of a broader crackdown on big tech companies, with Apple, Meta platforms also facing allegations of maintaining illegal monopolies. Let's turn to sports. India's Pranav Venkatesh clinched the World Junior Chess Championship in Petrovac city of Montenegro. He settled for a draw against Matek Levnarčić of Slovenia in the 11th and final round of the tournament to bag the prestigious title. 18-year-old continued his great show among juniors, remaining undefeated in the tournament. The Indian scored a total of 7 victories and 4 draws to end up with 9 points out of a possible 11. When the final round pairings were announced, it was clear that a draw will ensure a win for Venkatesh. His victory marks the end of India's 17-year wait for a men's junior title. An Indian Grandmaster, Arvind Chidambaram, claimed the first major title of his career by winning the Prague Masters. Chidambaram settled for a draw against Turkish Ediz Gürel in the 9th and final round. He finished ahead established names including compatriot R. Praganananda. 25-year-old Chidambaram ended on 6 points out of a possible 9 after his 3 victories and 6 draws in the tournament. World number 8 Praganananda finished second with 5 points after losing to Dutchman Anish Giri. India's Ayush Shetty continued his solid run at the Orleans Masters badminton tournament in France with a win over Denmark's Rasmus Gemke in the quarterfinals. The 19-year-old Indian badminton player beat Gemke 21-16, 21-23, 21-17 to qualify for the semi-finals. Shetty will play world number 14 Lin Chun-si in his next clash on Saturday. He began the contest with aggressive intent and clinched the first game. Gemke forced his way back into the match by winning the second game. The third game of the contest saw Shetty lead 11-9 at the mid-game break. He built on the momentum after the change of ends and wrapped up the match in 1 hour and 21 minutes. In Tallinn, Grispur stunned the top-seeded Alexander Zverev 4-6, 7-6, 7-6 in the second round at the Indian Wells, avenging the loss of Roland Garros last year. The world number 2 Zverev is the first top seed to lose his opening match since Andy Murray in 2017. It was a cherished win for Grispur, who had lost 5 straight matches to German. Meanwhile, American Marcos Giron posted his first win over a top 5 player, upsetting 4th seed Casper Ruud 7-6, 3-6, 6-2. And women's defending champion Iga Swiatek eased through her opening 6-2, 6-0 against French veteran Caroline Garcia. The second seed will next face Ukrainian Diana Yastemska, who upset Tunisian Ons Jabeur in the straight sets. Elena Rybakina was sharp, taking out Suzanne Lamens of the Netherlands 6-3, 6-3. She will face Britain's Katie Boulter in the third round after 25th seed beat Irina Kamiliga Begu of Romania. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and the world on DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS. Scan this QR code on your screens to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.